In the vast expanse of San Francisco Bay, there's an island that time seems to have forgotten. Alcatraz, once a beacon of justice, now a relic of history. This is a tale of audacity, of three men who dared to challenge the very essence of confinement. Three souls, consumed by desperation, dared to dance with death itself. The island is a mere 1.25 miles from the bustling city of San Francisco, yet it feels worlds apart. Before its legendary status as the world's most daunting prison, Alcatraz played a significant role in America's military and penal systems. Strategically positioned in the heart of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz was initially recognized for its military potential. In the 1850s, the U.S. Army fortified the island, equipping it with cannons and defensive structures. This military stronghold was designed to protect the bay from potential naval threats, making Alcatraz a linchpin in the West Coast defense. By the late 19th century, the island's purpose began to evolve. Its inherent isolation, perfect for defense, also made it an exemplary site for detaining military prisoners. From 1861, Alcatraz served as a military prison, initially for Civil War detainees and later for captives from various American military engagements, including the Spanish-American War. The 20th century, however, brought a pivotal transformation for Alcatraz. In the 1930s, America grappled with the aftermath of the Great Depression, leading to increased criminal activities as people desperately sought means of survival. Organized crime syndicates grew more powerful, and bank robberies became more frequent. Recognizing the need for a high-security facility to house the nation's most dangerous criminals, FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover decided to repurpose Alcatraz. In 1934, the island was converted into a maximum security prison. Its isolated location, combined with the perilous waters of the bay, made escape a near impossible feat, solidifying its reputation as America's most impenetrable prison. Born on September 1, 1926, in Washington, D.C., Frank Clay Morris' early life was marked by turbulence and hardship. Abandoned by his parents at a young age, he spent his formative years at foster homes and institutions. Highly intelligent, with an IQ reported to be in the top 2% of the population, Morris' intellect was juxtaposed by his criminal inclinations. By his teenage years, he was already involved in a series of crimes, ranging from narcotics possession to armed robbery. His ability to escape from seemingly secure facilities earned him a reputation as a master escape artist. It was this talent, combined with his criminal record, that eventually led to his transfer to Alcatraz in 1960. Born on May 2, 1930, in Donaldsonville, Georgia, John William Anglin was the eldest of the Anglin brothers involved in the infamous escape. Like his siblings, John was introduced to a life of crime early on. The Anglin family, primarily consisting of seasonal farm workers, found supplementary income through robbing banks and other illicit activities. John, along with his brothers, became adept at breaking into establishments. Despite his criminal tendencies, those who knew John described him as affable and charismatic. However, his charm did little to deter his criminal ambitions. After a failed bank robbery in Alabama, John was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. His repeated escape attempts from other facilities made him a prime candidate for Alcatraz, where he was incarcerated in 1958. Born on May 11, 1931, Clarence Anglin was just a year younger than his brother John. The two were inseparable in both their personal and criminal lives. Clarence, like John, was drawn to a life of crime from a very young age. The brothers, often working in tandem, committed a series of burglaries and robberies. Their modus operandi was consistent. They targeted establishments, particularly banks, that were closed, ensuring no hostages or direct confrontations. After their capture for the Alabama bank robbery, Clarence too found himself in and out of various prisons. His escape attempts, though less frequent than John's, were notable enough to warrant his transfer to Alcatraz, where he joined his brother in 1958. The trio's paths converged at Alcatraz, where they, along with other inmates, began plotting one of the most audacious escape attempts in penal history. Alan Clayton West, unlike the more infamous trio of Frank Morris and Anglin brothers, is less frequently spotlighted in the narrative of the escape, but his role was undeniably pivotal. Incarcerated at Alcatraz for a series of car thefts, West was housed in the cell adjacent to Frank Morris. It was during the routine monotony of prison life that West made a startling discovery. He noticed that the vent at the back of his cell, ostensibly a mere air duct, was not as secure as it appeared. The saltwater air had eroded the vent's surrounding structure over the years, making the concrete brittle and susceptible to chiseling. Recognizing the potential of this vulnerability, West approached Morris and the Anglin brothers with his findings. The proposition was simple yet audacious. They could chisel away the vent, access the utility corridor behind the cells, and from there find a route to prison's roof. Alan West's involvement in the Alcatraz escape plan wasn't just a matter of chance or proximity. His position within the prison played a significant role in facilitating the escape plot. West had managed to secure a job with the cell house maintenance crew, a seemingly mundane role that would prove to be of strategic importance. Working with the maintenance crew provided West with several advantages. Firstly, he had a legitimate reason to access various parts of the prison, allowing him to scout potential escape routes, identify structural vulnerabilities without arousing suspicion. His role also gave him a certain level of trust among guards, which he could exploit to gather information or materials. Perhaps the most significant advantage of West's position was the ability to influence cell assignments. West used his influence to ensure that he and his co-conspirators, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, were housed in cells adjacent to each other. Furthermore, their adjacent cells shared a utility corridor, which was a crucial component of their escape plan. The corridor hidden behind the cell walls provided a concealed space where the inmates could work undetected. It also offered a direct route to prison's roof, which was identified as a primary escape path. In the confines of Alcatraz, resources were limited, and the inmates had to be exceptionally resourceful to gather the materials they needed for their escape. Central to their plan was the need for a raft and life vests to navigate the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay. The solution came in the form of standard-issue prison raincoats made of rubber-like material. Over time, the escapees managed to discreetly collect a total of over 50 raincoats. This was no small feat, as they had to bill for these items without arousing suspicion, relying on both their own allotments and those of other unsuspecting inmates. Once acquired, the raincoats were meticulously cut, stitched, and glued together in concealed spots within the prison, often under the very noses of the guards. The dummy heads crafted by inmates were a masterstroke in their escape plan. Understanding the importance of buying time during their breakout, they needed a way to deceive guards during the routine nighttime headcounts. Using materials readily available within the prison, they began crafting heads that would pass a cursory glance. The base of these decoys were molded using a mixture of soap and toilet paper, giving them a basic human head shape. For added realism, they painted the heads with prison-issued art supplies to mimic the skin tones. The inmates managed to source real hair from the prison barbershop, which they meticulously attached to their dummy heads. This attention to detail made the decoys remarkably convincing. When the night of the escape arrived, these dummy heads were strategically placed on the inmates' beds, covered with blankets to simulate sleeping prisoners. This worked like charm, deceiving the guards during their routine rounds and providing the escapees with crucial hours they needed to make their getaway. As the sun set, casting a deep orange hue, an air of anticipation permeated the rock. For Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, this was the night their meticulous planning would be put to test. It was the night they would attempt to break free from the inescapable fortress of the Alcatraz. Inside their cells, Morris and the Anglin brothers initiated the final phase of their breakout. Over the preceding months, they had covertly chiseled away the vent openings behind their cells using improvised tools. These vents led to a utility corridor, a hidden pathway that would take them to prison's roof. To deceive the guards during the night, they placed their ingeniously crafted dummy heads on their beds, simulated sleeping inmates, ensuring the guards remained oblivious to their absence. With the stage set, the trio made their way into the utility corridor. Climbing the narrow, dimly lit space was no easy feat. They had to navigate a maze of pipes and vents, all while managing absolute silence. Reaching the roof, the vast expanse of the bay lay before them, its waters glistening under moon's glow. However, as Morris and Anglin brothers prepared to descend the prison walls, they realized that one of their own was missing. Alan West, the inmate who had initially discovered the vent's vulnerability and had been instrumental in the planning, had encountered a problem. Despite his efforts, West had been unable to remove his vent grill in time. The meticulous planning and the preparation had not accounted for this unforeseen challenge. As the minutes ticked away, the trio faced a heart-wrenching decision: proceed without West or abort the escape. Recognizing the narrow window of opportunity and the risks of delay, Morris and the Anglin brothers made the difficult decision to leave West behind. Using a makeshift rope fashioned from stolen bed sheets, they descended the prison's exterior walls and made their way to the shoreline. There, a raft ingeniously crafted from over 50 pilfered raincoats awaited. As they paddled into the bay's cold, unpredictable waters, the enormity of their endeavor became clear. The journey was fraught with danger, from the bay's treacherous currents to the ever-present threat of capture. The FBI, with its vast resources, was immediately on the case, spearheading an extensive manhunt and investigation. The escapees had vanished, and the question on everyone's mind was, did they survive? Every nook and cranny of the prison was searched, from the cells to the utility corridors and even the surrounding waters. The discovery of makeshift raft on the nearby island, along with a paddle and personal belongings, was a significant find. It confirmed that the escapees had indeed made it off Alcatraz Island. But where did they go after that? The waters of the bay are notoriously cold, often hovering around 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, hypothermia can set in rapidly. Within minutes, the body's core temperature begins to drop, leading to muscle cramps, confusion, and fatigue. Prolonged exposure can result in unconsciousness and eventually death. Adding weight to the drowning theory was a chilling report from the SS Norfell, a Norwegian ship, on July 17, 1962. The ship's crew reported seeing a body floating about 20 miles northwest of the Golden Gate Bridge. The sighting was not immediately reported, as the ship was en route to Canada. While the body was never conclusively identified, the proximity to the escape route and the timing of the sighting made it a significant piece of evidence. Could it have been one of the escapees? In January 1965, rumors surfaced suggesting that Clarence Anglin was residing in Brazil. The FBI, acting on this information, dispatched agents to South America. Despite their efforts, they couldn't find any concrete evidence to confirm his presence there. 2 years later, in 1967, the FBI received a call from an individual claiming to be Frank Morris's classmate, alleging a history of acquaintance. The caller recounted an unexpected encounter with Morris in Maryland, describing him as sporting a small beard and a mustache. However, the caller remained elusive, declining to provide any additional details. Over the years, the Anglin family reported receiving a series of postcards and messages. While most of these were unsigned, a few bore the signatures Jerry and Jerry and Joey. In a particularly intriguing instance, a Christmas card arrived in the family's mailbox in 1962, inscribed with the words, "To Mother from John. Merry Christmas." Robert Anglin, one of the brothers' siblings, also mentioned mysterious phone calls characterized by only breathing sounds. He mused, "I suppose all that could have been pranks, but maybe it was my brother's voice." Adding to the mystery, every Mother's Day until her demise in 1973, the Anglin brothers' mother received flowers from an anonymous sender. At her funeral, two unusually tall women wearing heavy makeup were spotted. Federal records indicate that between mid-1960s and the 1970s, there were several reported sightings of the Anglin brothers in North Florida or Georgia. Robert Anglin also recounted a poignant incident from 1989. When their father passed away, he described two bearded strangers who briefly visited the funeral home, gazed at the casket, shed tears, and then silently departed. In 1989, the then popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries received a tip from a woman identifying herself as Katie. She claimed that a photograph of Clarence Anglin bore a striking resemblance to a man she knew who lived on a farm near Marianna, Florida. Another woman echoed this claim, accurately describing Clarence Anglin's physical attributes. Furthermore, another witness stepped forward, asserting that a sketch of Frank Morris looked remarkably similar to a man she had observed in same vicinity. A day after the escape, a man claiming to be John Anglin called a lawyer, Eugenia McGowan, in San Francisco to arrange a meeting with the U.S. Marshal's office. When McGowan refused, the caller terminated the phone call. Robert Chackey, a San Francisco police officer, said that at 1 a.m. on the morning of June 12, he saw an illegal boat in the bay near Alcatraz. A few minutes later, the boat left, heading under the Golden Gate Bridge. A 2011 documentary on the National Geographic Channel entitled Vanished from Alcatraz reported that contrary to the official FBI report, a raft was discovered on Angel Island on June 12, 1962, the day after the escape, with footprints leading away from it. Furthermore, a 1955 blue Chevrolet was reported stolen in Marin County the same day, a report corroborated by stories in the Humboldt Times and the San Francisco Examiner. The following day, a motorist in Stockton, California, 80 miles east of San Francisco, reported to the California Highway Patrol that he had been forced off the road by three men in a blue Chevrolet. In 2018, the FBI confirmed the existence of a letter allegedly written by John Anglin and received by the San Francisco Police Department. In 2013, the writer asserted that Frank Morris died in 2008 and was buried in the Alexandria under a different name, and Clarence Anglin died in 2011. His purpose in writing the letter, he said, was to negotiate his surrender in exchange for medical treatment of his cancer. The letter's authenticity was deemed inconclusive. Over the years, various individuals have come forward with claims of spotting the Anglin brothers in Brazil. These sightings, often based on personal encounters or recognition from photographs, have added layers to the mystery. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy ordered the closure of Alcatraz. The prisoners were then transferred to other facilities, and the rock was left abandoned. Despite the exhaustive investigations, countless leads, and the relentless pursuit of the truth by the brightest minds, the fate of the escapees remains an enigma. Their story, instead of finding closure, has woven itself into a fabric of modern-day lore, becoming one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of modern times.